apologies in advance. Guess who's not feeling well? I managed to tape quite a few videos and whatnot before I started feeling this bad. And those will come out eventually. But for Wednesday Comics, I'm only going to review two comic book projects. One being Stargirl from DC, obviously, and Knife Hand, Blind Spot from Richard C. Myers' Splato Comics. And if you know the story behind Splato, well, you can understand the chuckle. So I'll go into Knife Hand, and just by the look of the initial preview art, was intrigued by it. As these, and this is a Jawbreakers character. He was a member of the team, and so far, although I've enjoyed a good bit of them, and certainly the art is top notch. He's always chosen very good artists for his project, and but just overall, I've always gone back to Lost Souls as being the best of the batch. It's just narratively speaking, a more complete story into it, and I'm not sure. It would seem he's building on things out of them, but it's one of those things I keep coming to with these independent projects out of Indiegogo and whatnot, the crowdfunding ones, that there's a lot of time in between. So had it been a regular series, might flow better. But we'll never know. In the multiverse somewhere, perhaps. But but this one, just looking at the artwork, was an interesting approach. It's sort of this. There's detail, but at the same time, minimalism in it, where it's just sort of this sketchy art with a dash of the watercolor style on it. But it works because I'm sure he mentioned it and I just didn't pay attention. But this is a non-text story. It's all imagery, and through the sequential art is that you understand that this is this mission that Knife Hand is on. And it's a fantastic looking thing. I wasn't quite expecting. I saw some of the preview imagery, but I didn't quite get it until I read it. That this structure that he goes into and what exactly. I saw the giant chain and stuff, but I was, oh, okay. So, and it's very cool. There's really great looking villains and everything. Obviously a nod to the influences of G.I. Joe in a lot of it. But I was going to say even Marvel, but of course G.I. Joe was spawned out of an attempt to do a line of toys based on Shield versus Hydra, and they just changed it to G.I. Joe and made up Cobra, and there you go. So, which is significant for the backup story in here. But so now I'm thinking, now Knife Hand Blind Spot is the best of the Jawbreakers story. It has a draw to it, that especially by its silent nature, but also by the interesting art choice for an action story, and how it draws you in on this for this mission that Knife Hand is in. And ends on a somewhat dark and disturbing point, but then considering the overall nature of Jawbreakers, shouldn't come as a surprise. So it's fine. But then again, it's like, oh, this could be something you could revisit down the road and what have you. Now, for the backup, I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to that either, as to what to expect in it. It was all about just the Knife Hand story. But it's this hilarious parody of G.I. Joe. And just this guy who is put on this ridiculous mission to replace his Japanese throwing star. And then what would happen if G.I. Joe had to fight real terrorists? And it's more of the parody on, well, I mean, you know, in the 80s you had the G.I. Joe cartoon and the rules of cartoons then. Here's this army or military outfit, but they can't carry real guns. They had to be, you know, phasers or whatever. So that kind of thing. And so it you know, it helps to be aware of that and to understand the old G.I. Joe cartoon. And I never did read the G.I. Joe comic books, so maybe there was some of that there too. Maybe not. You know, maybe comic books had more leeway. But anyway, that approach, and then the code names for the characters and all that stuff. So if you're very much aware of the G.I. Joe story structure and aesthetic, then you should get quite the kick out of this backup story that's in there. And I certainly did. So if you missed out, I imagine this will be available in a bundle type thing for another project that he'll do, or check out eBay. But it is a very high recommend. I really was I was kind of taken aback. I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did. So very good. Knife and Blind Spot. The next one I'll do is Mind Your Business, which is a follow-up to The Ballad of No, and a part of his the Theosophy storyline he's doing. Ballad of No, beyond Jawbreakers, and even better than Jawbreaker. It's just the best that he's done. It was creatively and just presentation and sort of a surreal approach to the storytelling. And haven't exactly read Mind Your Business. It's sitting right in front of me, but when I do, very excited to take a look at that. Because even after Knifehand, no matter how good it was, I still think Ballad of No is his best work. So lots of interesting stuff coming from Splotto Comics. Meanwhile, back in the mainstream with DC Comics, you have Jeff Johns' new Golden Age effort with, of course, the Justice Society of America, which is supposed to be an ongoing, you know, provided sales allow for it. But the miniseries companion is Stargirl and the Lost Children. And for the most part, it was just a tour of this concept of people who did exist, but now no longer do, and are stuck on this mysterious island for some mysterious reason. And because it's all very mysterious, it's just quite a mystery. And some were actual sidekicks to old Golden Age superheroes, and others have just been made up for this purpose, and all put together for characters that are somehow lost and forgotten. This would mean that their elder superheroes don't remember them. Most notably was a character introduced to be the original Jay Garrick Flash's daughter, who went by the superhero name Boom, or The Boom. Probably should have picked something else, but nevertheless. So the idea that he wouldn't remember, you know, but after this, probably will. And so that the conclusion ends up, is it enough to salvage it? Because overall, the artwork's great. The approach to it is quite a callback to that style of characters from those days, and it's all very interesting. I'm not sure how they weave this, because they've introduced a sidekick for Dr. Fate, where they have a new Dr. Fate in current times. I don't know if they will set this up where these kids go back to their respective times, or what have you. Or they'll suddenly miraculously age to their adult years, but then they'd be really old because they're all from the World War II era. So yeah. So don't know, or they'll just be constant stories set in the past detailing, hey, what really happened with these kids that no one remembers, but now they do, or what have you. But there's a spectacular battle in this one where they try to, get answers and their freedom from the Wicked Castle, and the crazy chicken lady that's in there, and then her apparent boss, which was introduced last issue, but I'll keep that under wraps, should you wish to not be spoiled by its story. And so it's not an overwhelming recommend. It's not a bad comic. It's just not all that, but there's one more issue to go. Perhaps as a whole collection, it works really well in this attempt of introducing these new characters for their new golden age, and will probably be constantly guest stars and features of the ongoing Justice Society of America story. So it's all right. It's all right. All right, but I'm not. I need to take a break. And I'll see you next week for another episode of Mr. Nailsin's Wednesday Comics.